Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin the special tribal council meeting of Thursday, October 1st, 2020. I have 10:03 a.m. And this is a special tribal council meeting, and we've adopted provisions, it's an emergency situation to allow tribal council members that are participating by phone to participate and actually vote on the issues that are before us today. So, first order, roll call.
Don Gentry,
Here?
Gail Hatcher, Roberta Frost here, Brandy Hatcher,
Here.
Jeannie McNair, Clay Dumont,
Here.
Rose Treetop,
Here.
Willa Palace,
Here.
Ellsworth Lang,
Here.
and Jesse Hikokta is excused.
Great. So we have a quorum. Randy, would you open with the invocation this morning? Thank you.
Lord, thank you for this day. We ask that you bless each and every one of us, and we ask for your wisdom and guidance for the business at hand. We just look to you for all the answers. And I just ask that you comfort those that are sick at this time, and I just ask that you put your healing arms around them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Brandy. So this is a special tribal council meeting, so we're going to be addressing the specific items that we have on the agenda. Just a note, under the item 2, there are a number of different matters that we will be addressing under that today when we get to that. Any other corrections or additions, corrections to the agenda, I guess? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to... Yes.
Vice Chair's not here, are we doing item 5?
Oh, item 5.
Or is she going to be here with her?
She's going to participate by the phone, is that correct?
Oh.
I believe she is. She's probably not on, but she's going to be on by the phone. So we'll keep that on there, and if she's available, we'll go through it at that point. That was item 5. Vice Chair, I think, is going to join by phone. Not sure if she's on yet. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Okay. Treasurer Hatcher, second. Okay, Member Palace. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those on the phone, do you say aye?
Aye.
Okay. Those opposed, the same? Okay, no opposed. With abstentions, 1 abstention. Motion carries. Okay. As far as process here, I'm not sure who's going to lead us through the items. Was that what you were going to do? Member Lopez or Secretary, do you have an idea what we wanted to address first? Or Kathy? I'm just wondering how we're going to move forward because we've got a number of... Yes. Okay. So, do we have a mic for Kathy?
So what's the, is it the list or the process?
Forms and processes, how it is, so...
Do we have those forms?
If not, I can work us to.
I don't see
I
forms.
can send it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Jennifer, do we have a number of folks on listening in? 17? Okay, great.
For the application for the program?
Yes. Yeah, we have that on. But I'm guessing that's still the old one. That's not the one that we...
Okay, so, let's see. So, I pulled up the email that Justice sent up, and so we're going to go over today the CARES Act funding list.
Could you grab a microphone?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
Can you hear me? The CARES Act funding list, the process that we're going to use to move forward with projects, and then the entities form that was, the application form that was created by our EDW. And I'm going to forward that to you right now.
Okay.
Yes. And then I will provide an update on the continued assistance for the General Welfare Emergency Assistance Program, along with what work is being done to date on that.
Okay.
And I believe that will either be a separate meeting to approve documents if you move forward with that, and, or present on October 14th, the work. So first, we can go through the CARES funding list. Do you want to do that? Kind of look at that first?
Yes.
So I just sent that up to you. I'm going to pull the CARES funding list. And I believe all recommended revisions have been incorporated. So as you pull the CARES funding list up, do you got that on there?
Is it dated 9/28/20?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that was on our flash drives.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So on there were different dates, and I tried to clean that up a little bit so that it would all be a running total number of projects per entity without those dates. And we totaled up those proposed projects. We also incorporated the recommendation to have a approved total and a date of approval for each of those entities at the end of those columns. At the bottom of that page, we included the total expenditures as of September 25th, 2020, and that is the dollars spent out of the CARES Act to date, and that is $5,356,586, or $5,356,586.11. Along with that came a detailed expenditure report that was sent to you. Yes, along with a summary of some of those specific items that went along with that.
Kathy?
Mhm.
So to back up a little bit, the columns that have the approved total and the date of approval are blank on
For you,
mine.
that's for today. So we would have,
But those will be
we would plug
forthcoming.
those in once you guys make approvals.
Okay. And this,
So we were trying to capture what Jesse had brought up.
right?
And then if you approved a different proposed amount, we would then put that amount in there. So say you questioned one of the projects
Mm-hmm.
and didn't want to fully commit to that,
Mhm.
then we would have a different dollar amount in there. And then we would put today's date, or whatever date of approval.
Okay. And the total expenditures detailed list that you sent, that's the one that looks like it's on a
Yes.
card?
Mhm.
Okay. When I saw it earlier, there were some explanatory notes on the bottom
Yes.
that don't seem to be on this later version.
On the email? So that report didn't include, the email included the summarized of what some of the specifics were. It was on an
Yeah.
email.
I'm going to go back to the
Okay.
email then.
Not on this last update from Joseph. He didn't include, I don't believe those were included, but the report that George had sent up to you previous
Right.
included the specifics.
Okay, I want to see if I can find
And that's
that.
where we had a request from, I believe, council to place the expenditure report along with some of those specific expenditures on the website under the tribal membership area.
Do the rest of you have the email date when that came? I want to find the more detailed one.
Are you looking for an email from Kathy? It'd have been from George. Let me see here.
I found it. Looks like it was on the 29th at 9:50 a.m.
Okay,
From me, yes.
okay. So what we can do with that is so that you're always apprised of the running total of that account. We'll continue to report and provide reports on the CARES Act funding itself with the, if you like those specific, a generalized specific breakdown of the items, we can do that also.
And I wasn't on that email. I don't know where I saw it, but I know I saw a version of this. It looks like it had a card, and then there were some explanatory notes below it, 5 or 6, that filled in more details. But it's not on the email from George, and it's not on the thumbnail.
I don't recall that.
Huh. I know I saw it.
Yeah. So,
I probably sent it, I just don't recall.
okay, let me look at this one. Okay, let's see here.
And the reason I'm asking, right, is because I don't think just that little card has sufficient details, to understand for sure what all the different categories are, particularly if we're looking at putting this up for our members to see.
Well, as we expand and we start approving these funds, there'll be additional fund numbers, or funds. So that's all the funds that have been created to date. As you approve more projects, those fund numbers are going to increase, and then the dollar amounts will reflect the totals from those entities also. So these are just what fund numbers administration has assigned to the expenditures to date. And as we start moving forward with development of this reporting, we can run it by you and see what type of additional information you'll want as we start spending more. Does that sound, and we can work together on that, the development of the formatting?
Yes, Member Palace?
I think one of the things that the council member, and I'm not trying to speak for him, but I do know that one of the things that we've asked is for a summary to be provided to general council that we could put up on the tribal members only website. But I also would like to recommend to staff that we do some e-blasts or some coverage on our tribal Facebook and social media about some of the projects we're working on. For example, a lot of tribal members aren't aware that we are developing the process to live stream general council meetings, not tribal council, but the general council meetings where there can be active participation. And I know there's been some concern because people have seen the monitors and things that we were buying for that project, and it might not look right walking into the building and seeing a bunch of big screen TVs, but if they knew what that project was for, they'd be really in support of it because they're the ones who asked for it. So I just want to make sure that we're communicating as good as possible with general council and that they're aware of some of these really fantastic projects we're working on. And if we could do that by maybe doing a little news article or sharing it on eBlast or our website, that would be good.
That's good.
Okay, I agree. We will work on that. So I'm looking for the email on,
Then, of course, my computer restarted on me, so I had to go back to my switch.
okay, so I will forward that to you right now.
Okay,
I
thank you.
found it, and that way we can talk about that. Okay, just sent it to you. So with the funding, the CARES funding list, is everyone okay with that format for right now? And we'll always update that total expenditures line. We'll have the total proposed services projects updated as there's changes made. So you'll always be aware of what proposed projects, the total that we're looking at. Now that total that you see there, the $23,526,506 is without the Clamoya Casino amount. And I didn't add that because I didn't want to assume what option you were going to approve for him. He has 2 options. And so I left it out so that you guys would be able to, once a decision, or you will always know as you have conversations with the general manager there, what to add to that total when you guys make decisions on that. Also, in your next report on this CARES funding list, we'll have a total amount of the CARES Act award And so that award is $34,190,731.43. So that way you'll know what the award is, what the proposed projects are, and how much has been spent to that date. $34,190,731.43.
Chairman?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So I think that the spreadsheet that has the totals you're talking about and the projects and the status of the projects is fine for us, but I think it could be confusing to put out to general membership because there are things that aren't approved yet and things that are approved. So the second document, the one that looks like a card, just like a card, and it has a total, but the details about what those items are, I don't think are sufficient for members. That, I'm talking about that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you see the, so I just forwarded it, and did you see the front page of that email where it breaks it down?
Front page of the email.
So I forwarded the email that I sent to George, and on the email, not on the attachments, is a breakdown.
That must be where I saw it. Okay.
Yeah, it's on the front of the email.
Okay, so,
And so that includes
I forwarded that just a minute ago as well.
okay.
the breakdown of more detailed.
So what I'm wondering is if we could have those things both.
Together, yes,
Together
yes.
for
Oh, yeah.
members.
Yes.
Okay,
So we'll, as you see that reporting, we'll put that below it.
okay,
The bullets below it, so they'll know what's been spent.
okay.
Does that sound good?
That
And
sounds
we'll
good.
forward it to you so you can look at it, see if it looks good.
Yeah, thank
Prior
you.
to putting it up.
Perfect.
Uploading.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So back to that CARES funding list. Each entity's general manager provided revisions to me on the date required, and so I incorporated those, and so that's where you're at with, they took a look at it. Each entity, general manager, met with their staff and took a look at the proposed projects to determine if those projects could be completed by December 30th, 2020, or December 31st. That is the document you have in front of you, the revised document that each general manager and their staff have made recommendations that these can be accomplished, these projects. We wanted to bring it before you so that you would give a approval or a verbal consensus to go ahead and move forward with all these projects, knowing that they still need to fill out a COVID-19 application that admin. So admin has their own, that goes through our admin review. The entities have their own application that they fill out, and that's on the attachment for you to approve today. That one pager, I believe it's one. That's for you to approve today for the other entities.
So, I guess if we approve the concept,
Yep.
there are a number of items on here that I see that aren't relevant anymore. So I have a little bit of heartburn approving that but I want to approve a lot of them.
What's an example of that?
CATA work.
Ada, yeah. Thank you,
Uh,
Berta.
Yeah, another example would be we now have a better idea of what the generator for the travel center would be. And it's not that amount, it's less. And then there's maybe, I think there's a number of items that are on there that may have to be revised or dropped. So, I mean, I'm just saying that. So what we're doing is approving a concept, but we're going to get the opportunity
To do final
to
approvals
do
on the
final
amount.
approvals?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what would be easier is approving the concept from each entity, knowing that they're going to formally put the requests in written format and go through the process. And then, once approved, the chairman would be the signing off on the project and on the award letter. So, for example, Tribal Health would do and this is if all was accurate and costs, they would fill out the application for $6,142,874. And they would, within that application, they would identify all those projects to come up with that total. And then you would approve that,
Okay.
the individual applications.
So if we're doing that, and I can see numbers that are wrong, couldn't we also conceptually approve Clamoya's today? Because we don't know which option
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
they'll be able to accomplish before the end of the year.
Yes.
But they're going to have to do something.
Member Dumont?
Chairman, I guess I am concerned about the potential for confusion over approving a concept and approving a project. I know that we're in a hurry, but I would prefer to have these things come with the forms so that we know exactly what we're approving. There's a series of things in here, some of which I'm fine with, some of which I have questions about. I still have questions and concerns about hazard pay, right, and retroactive hazard pay, and I don't feel like I'm up to speed with all of what's happening there.
I think that's a
So-
great idea because, as I reported prior, this document is always just a document to keep you apprised of what all the entities we're looking at, a snapshot. So I think that is a great idea for all these entities to complete their applications, go through the process, get the approvals, and as you approve, I can update this spreadsheet for your internal use. So that it's a snapshot review of what you've approved, what you have,
Okay.
your entities are moving forward with.
I would prefer that, and I speak just for myself, but I'd be willing to have more tribal council meetings if we need to in
Okay.
the interest of expediency.
I think that is a great idea. That's how it should be. So the report, then you like how the snapshot looks, the CARES funding list, and how these totals will be there for your snapshot review? Okay. And then then moving on, then, is that okay with that document?
Yes, Member Paulos?
I'm fine with the document, but as far as what we're reporting out to general council, I still would like to see a summary, and in that summary, you could include approved projects, and then have a separate part that has proposed projects, and be very clear that those have not been approved, they're only being proposed at this time, because I don't want that to be confused when we're talking about this in these meetings, that they've been approved, even though some of them haven't been. So, but I just want to be real clear on what we've clearly approved, and that is being worked on, and that's why I really want to push promoting, sharing some of this on the newsletter.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, great idea.
I would say that would probably go out on the member site and by e-blast, because newsletter probably won't get in because it's going out today at 11.
Well, maybe we can discuss after I bring up the General Welfare Emergency Assistance Program. I want to ask if you guys want that application mailed out to everybody, and maybe with that application, we can have a one-page report
Yeah.
go out to the membership. So
Oh,
maybe
that's
we can
great.
talk a little bit more on that.
Yes.
As long as we're sure that we can take a look at it before it
Oh,
goes
yes.
out.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
You're talking about the form or the?
I'm talking about both.
Both,
Yeah.
okay.
So the snapshot, the CARES funding list, everyone's good with that format, and we'll move forward, and that'll be a reporting mechanism that we'll use for your internal use, and then if you want to put that up at any time, at the end of it, we can. Then the CARES Act expenditure report that is in that square box, that document, we'll work with you. That's the first reporting, and then we'll put that document up on the website along with the actual expenditure breakdown that's on that email. That talks about supplies in Fund 102 was spent on PP&E, plexiglass, and we'll break it down. And then you guys will get to see that prior to it going up for input.
Good, yeah, and it's anything we can do for clarity.
Yes.
To make it just crystal clear what the money's being spent on.
Okay. Will do. So I believe we're on looking at, is that good with that part, the expenditure report? Now we're on to
think so.
the form, the entities form. I just sent that up.
It's on the email.
It's on an email. That,
I don't know why.
the 929, I just sent it up from Joseph Allen. I forwarded that to you. Should be at the top of your emails. The title is Proposed Special Tribal Council Meeting Agenda Items.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Got it?
And we're looking at
And now we're looking at Klamath Tribes Project CARES Act budget request. Okay? This document was created by REDW. And I believe we discussed this during our work session a couple Fridays ago. Or was it last Friday?
it's
One of the
really
Fridays, we had a work session with REDW and discussed this form. And so we wanted to request a formal approval of using this with our entities and outside external partners. We didn't recall during the work session any council members that had any questions or suggested revisions. So that's why we just wanted to see if there is, or if you're good with this as a final.
Yes, Clay?
So presumably the approved date, that's when council signs off on it? Yes, okay. And I wanted to make sure I heard something correctly. Did you say that every project that was on the spreadsheet, I forget the title we used for it, that has all the projects and the costs, that each of the general managers had agreed that they can get that done before the deadline at the end of the year? Okay.
The only one I did not receive any feedback from was the travel center. And I just kept, he was included in the email, and I just continued to keep what they had proposed.
Anybody see any concerns or recommendations for the form? Okay, it looks good, I guess. Anybody? Okay.
So by consensus?
Yes, by
Is
consensus.
that
let's-
a good form?
That's
Okay.
great, thank you.
Nice. Okay. I don't have a copy of the agenda. Was that pretty much those two items?
Funding forms and process.
Any other questions on what we've talked about on that part before we move?
Don't see any, hear any.
Okay.
Yes, Clay?
In the category of funding forms, I see that there's an application here. Were we going to talk about that today, or is that going to be for later?
What is it? Oh, that was just later. That's later. That's
That's later today.
at another meeting. Because I have an update on that also.
Oh, okay.
And so for future reference for today's meeting, you also will see on that email the work for the 356, purchase of the 35601 South Chilcoin Road. So you'll be able to reference that on this email if you don't have that already. Okay? I'm going to close out of that. Next, I wanted to discuss the general, well, at this time existing, it's called the COVID-19 Emergency Assistance Program. And I wanted to provide you with an update on that program. Tribal administration and tribal health programs have continued to see the negative impact to our tribal members due to COVID-19. We are currently making revisions to an existing COVID-19 general welfare emergency assistance policy and a program application to address the continued needs of the tribal membership so that they can respond to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Therefore, at this time, we're formally making a request that continued general welfare emergency assistance be available for tribal membership effective October 19th through December 30th, 2020. Now, as you see on your snapshot on your CARES funding list, we've included that amount under the tribal government section. And that increase is to $10.5 million.
Okay, yes. Member Dumont?
So to make sure that I understand, so the revisions to the policy and the revisions to the application would be based on recommendations from REDW, right, for this second go-around,
For continued
continued.
emergency assistance
All
during
right,
this
gotta have the language
COVID-19
just right, yes.
public health emergency.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
With that, if approved, we ask that the revised program be effective October 19th. That allows for us to properly develop that policy and application tailored to meet the needs of our people.
Sure. Member Palace?
Could you just share for any tribal members listening in what the expected timeframe would be? Because they would like to probably budget that. And then also, what will it look like for tribal members who have not already applied for the original program?
So we would still continue to run both programs and continue to keep databases on both, because both were designed to run till December 20th, 2020. I mean, December 31st, 2020. And we would track that. We would also design the program that would allow for this program to address their immediate needs to respond to this COVID-19 public health emergency. And we would be up and running October 19th. We would be staffed, we would have our databases ready, we would be ready to complete the applications as they come in.
I see.
Again, it would be designed first by date received, and we would log that, track it, and process in that order. Unless tribal council would like a different proposed order, and that's why you guys would have the policy, you'll have the application to make those determinations.
Yeah. Treasurer?
Kathy, can you kind of briefly explain for those that are listening what the application would entail? What
It's gonna, it's being revised to incorporate a lot of the questions that we asked in our first application. So that it's gonna simplify checking off how their family, how they as individuals have been impacted by this COVID public emergency. And it's gonna request you to identify yourself and your family members and your mailing address, and then a signature. The signature, the fixed signature will confirm that we've done our due diligence by requesting from our tribal membership, our applicant, how they were impacted by this COVID-19 public health emergency, and where we've verified that that is their need, we'll be able to then provide the assistance.
Yes.
And then the
Member Brown?
application also is being designed, and the policy to be being designed, so that this is a general welfare direct client assistance payment, so that it strengthens our position that this is a non-taxable payment, general assistance payment. So all of it's to strengthen and to protect our people as they need our help.
So Kathy, it sounds like in the process of doing that the application is also going to be considerably simpler.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And right now, it's about 3 pages, but it's our verbiage. It's ours that we're putting in there. And so the 3 areas that I said they would have to fill out is just identifying who they are, their mailing address, and their family members, the mailing address, checking off how they've been impacted, and then signing it.
Yes, Member Palace?
In past meetings, I've asked if we would be able to give an estimate on how many, because I know there's the applications received, but some applications have several tribal members listed. So I was kind of wanting an estimate of how many tribal members we think we've assisted through the original program.
We're almost done with that.
Okay.
They had to do that manually, and they've just been working diligently as, trying to, still process the applications coming in. So they provided an update today. I'll have all that if we have a special, I'll have it ready by then. If not, it'll all be reported on October 14th.
Okay.
Yes.
And as
Tricia?
an update with our tribal members who are in institutions, we've narrowed that all down. We've been processing additionals that have come through, and then this morning we mailed out applications to those that have not been processed.
Yes, Treasurer, do you have additional?
So Kathy, or for those that are listening to, will the staff that's receiving the applications, they will be able to assist the tribal members answering those questions, how COVID's impacted them. For example, the students who are at home doing online schooling. I mean, that's an impact.
So if you look on that email I just sent you,
Uh-huh.
let me get in here.
Yes.
I have a quick question, and George might be able to answer this, but I know we've talked before about the problems with the communication with our various address databases, and I know we've all had some complaints about tribal members not getting their checks mailed to the right place or not getting the application in the first place. So I was just wondering what updates have been made on, I know you guys have been working on that, on trying to collaborate all the various databases.
So we have, and we're going to be meeting with just because of all the office closures, not trying to make excuses, but we're trying to get everyone together, the key staff together in member benefits and finance and IT to work on how to resolve that issue. And what we're finding is that, again, they are not compatible. The softwares are not compatible, and that therefore manual Excel databases are created and shared, exported, imported, which is causing some errors. We are going to need to make a decision on purchasing compatible software and the cost. And so IT is fully aware of that and going to come back with some recommendations, and then a decision will need to be made. So that's where we're at with that. I know I talked to Elizabeth last week, probably around Wednesday or Thursday, and she was going to be sending out a Zoom invite to have another meeting on that.
Thank you.
Okay, and then so we should have an update to you also by October 14th. So
Okay.
as you pull up it's a first draft.
Kathy, I just had a couple of questions just for clarity for folks listening. And, we did provide direct assistance to our members earlier in a program. So this isn't necessarily an extension of the same program. It's a little bit different with a simplified form. It'll be pretty easy for individuals to fill out with the assistance of staff. And this will provide more of a direct assistance payment to our members again after they go through the process. So,
So as our members show us how they've been impacted, and then we'll be able to provide continued emergency assistance,
Yeah.
so that
So
they
it is
can
a
properly
continuation.
respond.
yeah.
to COVID.
So how they've been impacted, is it simply as like a checklist?
Yes.
Basically, they'll ask the question, they'll just check off, yeah.
Yes, so it's gonna be revised, because
Okay.
this is just a first draft. As I revise the policy, I'm gonna pull some of that language and put it into the application, so again, it strengthens that document for taxing purposes and direct client assistance
Okay.
purposes. And some of the criteria that's identified in the application that shows how a tribal member has been impacted is, for example, COVID-19 related medical expenses not otherwise covered. Costs and expenses necessary to protect and preserve individual health. Cost and expenses needed to protect against unexpected long-term isolation, including but not limited to the emotional and psychological toll resulting from loss of traditional family association and tribal customs. Emergency medical response expenses, including emergency medical transportation, expenses and costs to maintain quarantine or in quarantining individuals, expenses to facilitate distance learning, including technological improvements in connection with school closures, expenses related to sanitation and improvement of physical distancing measures, expenses associated with the provisions of economic support in connection with the COVID-19 public health emergency, expenses related to overdue rent or mortgage payments to avoid eviction or foreclosure, unforeseen financial costs for funerals, expenses and costs that directly affected your household's ability to provide food, housing, or other subsistence needs, costs for elder assistance with technology, internet, and equipment, and other individual emergency needs to preserve or protect Klamath tribal lives, traditions, and customs. So I believe, we've tried to capture all types of areas where our membership might have been impacted. And of course, as we forward that up to you, our final draft, you'll have the opportunity to revise as necessary or add.
Great. Treasurer?
And I just want to reiterate to our members that are listening too, that nobody should be denied from this at all, like we did last time. We'll be able to do whatever we can to assist and
Yes,
not
so-
deny anybody.
So as long as you're 18 and over, and that's going to be identified in the policy, and you have been impacted by COVID as these examples are listed, then you will be provided assistance.
And anybody who eats has been in.
Basic, yes.
Okay. So as long as we're looking at this, just to save you a step, I'll tell you a question I'm going to ask about the disclaimer when we get it. In the first line where it's talking about access to any records, and I think the word any bothered a lot of our members. And so I would suggest maybe something like those records necessary, right, to verify. And the same issue is in the second line. I also consent to any legally authorized. I'd see if we could make those things less global.
Okay.
They sound pretty intimidating the way they
Okay.
are.
Yeah, I looked at the disclosure and was a little concerned. I would, we're threatening to fine people up to $10,000 and is that required? Or, and if it is, can we make the language a little less harsh?
Threatening.
Yeah.
So
threatening.
when I've reviewed other applications, they do have disclaimers in theirs too. Tribal applications. Online. So we can revise the wording though, to definitely serve the
Yeah.
purpose.
I would definitely look at revising that part, the threatening
Finding.
prison and the $10,000 fine. And I do think that other tribes may haven't included that, but other tribes also have more robust ordinances and laws in place to help
Yes.
enforce that, whereas we would have to go through a different court system because we're not currently set up to do that. But I would just put something, so along the lines, and we can definitely get legal on this, but something that says that any fraudulent claims are subject to, repayment or whatever. So it's as simple
Yes.
as that. Because that is scary when people are under a lot of trauma because of what's going on, that the threat, a lot of our people are living under the conditions that they're continually being threatened with eviction, and they don't know how they're going to make their bills this month, and the thought of being prosecuted by your own tribe isn't very, and I know that's not the
Yeah.
intention of but it just to protect the tribe and protecting our own process through having to abide by the CARES Act guidelines set by the Department of the Treasury. So I just want people to know that we have to protect our liability too, and that's the only reason that would be in there, but to
Yes.
soften the language.
Yes, I will.
I see Terry has a question. Maybe we can repeat it so she won't have the microphone.
I just wanted to know why something like that is so necessary to you guys when, just like Clay said, it's offered to anybody who eats. So why would
Yeah, we'll refine that. Yeah, we'll refine that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. We don't want that to be, okay.
I mean, but nobody's, trying to get the money for the development.
Yes.
We're
Mhm.
really up there, struggling
Yes.
up for
Mhm.
groceries and
Yeah, everybody's struggling and impacted, so, yeah.
And then also, just to be compliant with the U.S. Treasury guidelines, we'll be adding a question in there regarding, have they lost their job? Has their income been reduced? And then it's just a yes or no question.
I see. Yes.
And I'm just watching because we have tribal members watching the live stream, so we have a lot of questions in there. But I want to be clear that tribal members understand that this, and Brandy just stated it, but that everybody is eligible for this, and there's no income criteria.
Correct.
The only thing you have to do is be impacted, but as clearly stated, we've all been impacted, so every tribal member is eligible.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Whether
And it
they-
will be similar, proposed to tribal council, similar dollar amounts, similar process of how that was determined.
I see.
And this application has been reduced to 3 pages, which only 1 page is the information you have to fill out, which is just your identifying information, and then the second page is just a signature page. So, and that's what we're currently discussing, is that signature page. But it's not what it originally was.
Yes.
So, and I think it's pretty clear that's any tribal member, whether they live in the area or anywhere, on the planet.
Yes.
It's in.
And that is added into, I'm not sure if everyone had an opportunity to review the tribal newsletter article that
Yeah, I
we'd
had a
like to
chance
put
to
out,
look at
but
it,
that
yeah.
did specify that it didn't disqualify you based on income or residency.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to look at that newsletter yet.
Did that come from Taylor, or who did that come from?
It came from George. He sent it up last night for your review, because right after this
Oh.
meeting, I need to
Yeah, I
forward that
took a
to
look.
Taylor so we
It might have
can.
been like about 5:30, Councilmember, around there.
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
Yeah.
Were you guys okay with, so what I did is I tried to incorporate the resolution language, the items that we've discussed today, and George, refined it and captured what I missed, but within that article lists some of the, some of the criteria on how a member or a household would have or can be affected by COVID-19.
Yeah. Kathy, I did want to revisit, you mentioned the amount requested is basically to provide a similar amount of assistance as what was provided before, earlier. Just for the clarity of our members, when we move forward with this program, they could be expected to provide the similar financial benefits and assistance.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's if tribal council approves that. But yes, it'll all be, that has not been changed. That's not a recommended change.
Okay.
So, Chairman, can we have 20 minutes after the meeting to look at this before it goes into the newsletter?
We could take an intermission, because she has.
Could you?
Yeah.
Because she has to, it's Herald and News.
Oh, it
They're
is.
waiting for this, so
Okay.
that they can print tonight.
Chairman, could we maybe
Yeah. we
have
could-
5 minutes to read it?
Yeah, let's take a bit of a, I don't know what you call it, not a recess, but, yeah, I guess a recess to
It's a
look
5-minute
through this.
recess.
Yes,
Just a
any
5-minute
other
recess.
questions, though, on the
Do we
work that's
need
going
a-
to be?
Approval for you guys to move forward? Should we approve something?
Yes, so I did ask for a formal approval
Yeah.
to continue.
Yeah.
So that's,
So
I will need to.
if folks are comfortable, I'd like to move forward with making a formal approval for the amount requested, and we can work through the details of the press release and so forth after. Yes,
I'll make that motion.
okay, okay. Motion by Treasurer to approve the request in the program as described and presented here today, and a second by Member Palace. Okay, all those in favor signify by, or raising a hand, and those on the phone say aye.
Well, can I poll those on the?
Oh,
phone?
yeah, that's the way to do it. Yes, thank you. So we've got 5 showing here.
Ellsworth?
Are you muted, Ellsworth?
Oh, sorry about that. I was here talking with my, aye. Yeah, I vote yes.
Okay, are there any other council members on the phone?
This is Gail, I'm on, and I vote yes.
Great. So Secretary, what was the total there again?
7-4.
7-4, okay.
Are are there any other council members on the phone?
Were we missing this Jeannie, Jesse?
I think so.
It appears there's only Ellsworth and Gail.
Okay. Okay, those opposed, the same? Zero opposed on this end, since I think we counted all those on the phone. So abstentions, with one abstention, motion carries 7-0-1.
Thank you,
Great.
Tribal Council.
Thank
And
you.
I know that our tribal membership appreciate it. And when you hear their stories of how excited they are just to be able to pay their rent and buy food, it's so touching. And so it's a real need. It is a real need, and they appreciate it.
Yes,
Just let
Member
you know.
Palace?
Kathy, can we just clarify the date again when these applications will be available?
My timeline is to present on October 14th unless Tribal Council has a special. I will have the documents up for your review by this Friday.
Okay.
So you'll have the revised policy and your revised application, and so that'll be totally up to you if you want to schedule a special next week. I'll be available, and as soon as we get those approvals on those documents,
Then we can launch the application?
Yes,
Okay.
and so in that newsletter article, you'll see that I reference mailing out the application again. That's if you guys are in agreement with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, we could also provide a report, if you guys agree, on
That sounds
what
good.
has been expended in the CARES Act.
And my recommendation to council is to go ahead and call a special
Yes.
next week, just because we're at the point where we're probably happen to have weekly meetings anyway, just because we have
Right.
so much business to handle.
Okay.
Yes,
So if I was the only council member that needed the moment to read it, I've been able to do that now.
Yes.
And I'm fine with it, so.
That's
Yeah.
a good article.
yeah.
Yeah, it's well done.
Anything I would like to add? I do
Yes.
want to add one thing, is that the way this article reads, it sounds like this whole thing has been planned and proposed by tribal council, and staff has done a tremendous amount of work to get this through. All we've done is approve it, so, and make some, we kind of nitpicked it a little bit, but I really want staff to take some credit for developing this program and initiating everything and doing all the hard work when it looks like we're the ones doing it, and that's not the case. So
Yeah.
I just want to thank staff and make sure that you guys, and I'm not saying take credit for it, but just, staff has done all this work.
Yeah, thank you, Member Palace, that's wonderful. Yes, we do appreciate that. And we will schedule a special tribal council meeting to move this forward as quickly as possible. So again, thanks for everything. You know, it's
Thank you,
been
Kathy.
hard work so far.
Thank you, Tribal
And
Council.
pass that on to all this other staff that have been
I will.
involved in processing, and, you know, if they're
It's
not
a
listening.
team
and-
approach all the way, so.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you.
Kathy.
And then you're going to break, and then, the article's fine?
Yeah,
Awesome.
I had a
Thank
chance to
you. I will
look
get
at
that
it.
to Taylor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, were there, I guess these are separate requests that are not in the other, okay,
They are
Yeah.
in there. But Julie's here to present.
okay. So these are requests from the school districts. Thank you, Julie.
So,
This, for our members, this is Julie Bettles from Education and Employment here.
Julie, is this what you have? Because this is what we were planning on approving
Are you approving it?
for the Chiloquin schools. We've had that.
Yes, I'm sorry. There might be additional, so I was going to ask.
Okay. Okay. But this is included, is it?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Good morning, Tribal Council. Thank you for seeing me this morning. I'm here to advocate and prepare awareness about the Klamath County School District as well as the Klamath Falls City School District, inquiring and assessing needs that they may have outside of what they can provide through their own title programs. We've received requests from the Chiloquin schools as well as Klamath Union schools. Some include technology requests. Some include requests for transportation. Some include accessories that go with technology and or access to computer systems. I've included in the tribal council request a few samples of what we've received so far. The Chiloquin schools may also provide additional upon their application. So the applications have just been sent back out to them to formally come and get approval. But what I'm here to do is advocate for the consideration of providing supports to both school districts. And I came up with an amount based off of the Title VI student numbers. And those numbers are in the memo that I had provided. All along, when we started this technology project, there was some concern about all kids being able to get access. And then discussions about what that access looks like from the school perspective and the home perspective. Yes, we do have a technology request out there for all of our tribal members. However, on the second page of the memo, I'm going to skip forward, and it kind of demonstrates the benefits for what I had originally called pass-through funding to the school districts. The benefits are multiple in providing this additional funding. It's not duplicate services. And the reason why is the matching of the technology. We can't provide that in a secure environment. We can't provide exactly what the schools are providing and then guarantee that's secure for the school districts as well as for the tribe, because somebody needs to take responsibility for what goes on those systems. So that's one of the major reasons why this funding is separate than the technology project that the Education Deployment Department has taken on. Also on page 2 is what I proposed as funding support, and it's just a guide. It's just something I can make consideration of based on the number of Title VI students that were in the proposals at the end of the school year when they applied for funding to the state. Those numbers are 327 Title VI students in the Klamath County School District and 212 Title VI students in the Klamath Falls City School District. Based on an estimate that was given by the Klamath County School District at $350 assessed to support students, that number reflects $57,400 for the Klamath County School District and $37,100 to the Klamath Falls City School District. And since this had this process or this inquiry began with the number assessing the Title VI students, we did receive some base information from the Chiloquin schools, an assessment of their assessed needs. And they did, over the couple months, the requests have changed to not only looking at just systems, but maybe support of their teachers, because now that the students are getting these systems, well, the teachers don't have access to systems to work with students. Another one was providing teachers with additional resources to support the impact of students having to transition to the online environmental learning. Another is the HEPA filters, student incentives for showing up to be on online, and some water heaters. And these are just assessed needs at the time. The date of this request is August 18th. Since then, I'm sure that the schools and the school districts have identified other needs, and or their priorities may have changed. That's why it was important for us to get the application back out to them and come back to tribal council with a formal approval of their requests. So as I mentioned, I'm here to advocate consideration to support the school districts. I gave a baseline amount and the reasoning for that baseline amount, and also to just express that when there is a technology need, it's because of the compatibility for the school structure compared to the security and not breaching what our other technology project is providing. So.
Secretary?
So I do have a question about providing technology for, or at least half of it for Title VI students, because I think in all the meetings that we had with the school districts, they are providing, at least they told us they were providing one-to-one technology for the students because they're responsible for that. I think I would like to provide out of our CARES Act funding stuff, either technology, gas assistance, some type of assistance to the students and the families up above and beyond that. I believe the district should supply that. And if we supply technology to our students, I'm not having a problem supplying technology to the kids. That would be in addition to what they get from the district. And as far as the Chiloquin schools, and we put this offer out to the Klamath Falls City School District, if you have something that your staff needs that will assist them in teaching the kids, please submit it. And so that's why we got this from the Chiloquin schools. Offered that to both the districts because we have funding to assist, but I don't believe we should let them off the hook for the funding that they should be providing for our students anyway, because that's our responsibility.
I completely agree with you. Thank you for bringing that up, Secretary. And that's why I did recommend 50%. Because if we say, hey, we've got this much funding, you have this many students, let's just provide all the funding. I think it's very gracious of the tribe to reach out in that capacity to provide support. I don't feel that the district should be left off the hook, though, and I completely agree with you on that.
Member Dumont?
So, as the Secretary was saying, we put out this request to the schools, and we got a detailed memo back from the Chiloquin schools.
Yes.
And they also met and talked with us and explained their reasoning. That number, I just did a quick math, is $32,300.
Yes, on that request. That request, though, was August 18th.
I understand, but we have spoken to them since.
Yes.
And talked to them specifically about this. They haven't articulated, at least to me, any additional requests. And I'm all for helping schools, but I also think that we have to be very careful about being able to detail what we're spending this money on when our members ask us about it. So for me, I'm ready to approve the $32,300 that is broken out and requested, but the other doesn't feel to me nearly detailed enough. And I see that the memo just came yesterday after the close of business is when I got it. So I have questions. I would want to know more specifics about how that additional, what is that? It's another almost $70,000 would be spent beyond just the sort of general descriptions that are in the memo. So if we can get that done, right, if the city schools can put that together, specific kinds of requests with the kind of reasoning that the Secretary's asking for, and do that soon, then I'd be ready to move forward on that. But I need the specifics.
Understand.
So just to make sure I understand, there's been funding identified, and it was earlier, but you sent, in other words, are you expecting a modification above the 32,000 that's requested? Or basically, can we move forward with this and approve this request?
So what I'm advocating for the support of the school districts when they do finalize their requests and put in those actual specifics of what they want to use the fund. So it's that I'm asking for consideration to support the school districts. They will come present on what their uses are for with that detailed information.
And I'm fine with that, but I don't know if the form has been filled out for the 32,200
It
by
has
the
not.
Chiloquin School District, but they've certainly told us and supplied us with enough reasoning that we should be able to fill out that simple form and approve it. I'd like to approve it today. They asked for it a month ago.
Yes, I agree. My concern was that if maybe their needs had changed since then maybe they have additions.
Well, then we can take those up when they come.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
And
we-
just for our members listening in, Title VI students, we know those are native students. Maybe you can, for our folks listening in, what Title VI students are.
Okay, so our Title VI students and our Title VI program within the school district. School districts are identified with Title VI students after they fill out the 506 form, which are available online. What those do is they identify students that are either a descendant of a federally recognized tribe and/or a tribal member themselves. And the Title VI program allows for self-identity. So with that criteria, students that may have an enrolled mother, father, and/or grandparent are included with our Title VI. So it reaches into the descendancy component. And we do have additional programs that support Title VI students with our JOM program, for one. And then the Title VI funding provides additional funding to school districts directly. There is an application process. If a school has 10 or more students within their school district, then they can receive additional funding from the state dollars. If a school district receives more than $40,000, and that's a per student amount of funding, if a school district receives more than $40,000, then that's where we get into the consultation requirement. The school district is required to consult with the nearest tribe that's within 50 miles. With being Klamath County, we do have 2 school districts within the county, so that the school districts do have that communication with the tribal council and a requirement for consultation with the Title VI formula grant. It's a EASIE formula grant funding every spring that allows them to go into the next academic year with requested funding proposal amount based on the numbers of students that are actually enrolled in their schools, and that also they have to provide metrics and a breakdown of what exactly they're going to be utilizing the Title VI funding for. And with both of our school districts, they use heavily, they use the Title VI funding for staffing. That's where we see our Title VI coordinators within the school districts is they're utilizing that Title VI funding to pay for those salaries for those additional support coordinators for Title VI.
Great.
Does that help, or do you have another
Yeah,
specific
I think
question?
that's, mainly I want our members to understand who Title VI students are. So, but, yeah, I appreciate that additional information, yeah. So, okay, want to move forward, or we, basically, that's it?
That's basically,
Okay.
I wanted to advocate for that.
Well, thank you. Sounds like at least Clay wants to move forward and
Yeah, I would really like to approve the request that's been on our desk since August 18th from the Klamath County School District. It's for Chiloquin schools. It's in the memo. It's on your, it's on your computer.
yeah.
Lays out in considerable detail. I'd really like to approve that today. I understand they'll have to fill out the form, but all the necessary reasoning and the breakdown is here, the
Mhm.
justification.
Yes. So, would you like to propose a motion to approve
I'd make a
that?
motion that we approve the request of August 18th from the Chiloquin Elementary School.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, second by Treasurer.
At the high school as well, so I'm sorry.
I think, I'm looking at it, I think it's just.
There's high school, too.
Is there high school?
Yeah, there's high school too.
Okay, so let's say Chiloquin schools.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising a hand. Got 4 on this end.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Ellsworth. Gail?
I vote yes.
Okay.
So that would be 6-4.
Okay, those opposed? 0 opposed. Abstentions? With 1 abstention, my abstention, the motion carries 6-0-1.
And for the record, Rose has left the auditorium.
Yeah, she had to
So
leave
that's
earlier
why
for an
the
appointment.
count is different.
Chairman, before we lose Julie?
Yes.
And Julie, please convey to the city schools, and we want to help, but we just need the details and the reasoning.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time, Tribal
Thank you,
Council.
Julie, appreciate it, thank you. Yeah, they still have to fill out the application, I'm sorry.
Can we have staff assist them
Yeah,
with that, through that process?
yes. Okay, well, next up is the property acquisition. We have Jared Hall here, and how you doing, Jared? Doing well, thanks. I think the microphone's there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good morning, guys. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Good to see you.
The fires and everything going on.
All right, well, we got a couple COVID-19 related projects, so this is, I think some of the paperwork you guys have been reviewing is a little bit out of the ordinary, not going through the regular procedures since it sounds like we've had a breakthrough with the new allowable uses of funds and some stuff that came in with the consultants. So I decided I would adapt to everybody else's speed and kind of get us to the next steps of these 2 proposals. I know some of you guys probably have a lot more knowledge about the Twin Rivers Drive rather than the 35601, but I'll go ahead and present the 35601 South Chilcoin Road property first, because we have been engaged with the property owner all week over that property. So I did turn in a full report on that. You can take a look at the snapshot of it. So people listening in, it's approximately 4.34 acres out on South Chilcoin Road at the corner junction of Highway 62. It's right next to the 55-acre tribal housing community project, and then across the street from the Mormon church. So it was a fairly new building built in 2003. It's just under 5,000 square feet. All utility hookups were available during a couple site tours. We toured this property last summer for a different use and a different purpose, but we did not end up following through with the acquisition. The only thing that did pop up doing some review, obviously there's no water rights that come with the property, but one thing that I did discover on the interactive map was there was not a well located on the property, but that could just be a mapping issue on OWRD's database. So I did check it because there was 2 wells on the other side on the adjacent property that Pete Pate used to own. And so I called him to verify what was going on. He does have 2 wells on that property, but he has a dedicated well for this building that he verified. So I did go out and take a look at it. It is there. So I can't explain why there's not a well log record. But the only information I have at this point from the owner is it's a 50 gallon per minute rated well. So I guess if we were to move forward with this, I'd probably require some type of documentation just to make sure we're not going to run into any issues with OWRD with not having a recorded well. Other than that, it's a fairly new building. It was constructed by the construction company back during the construction boom. He obviously did very well, and so he did that with a group of volunteers. They built that themselves as a community project. So it is open space, lots of features in there. They do have a community kitchen, a couple daycare rooms. They do have men and women bathrooms. I don't believe. So I think one of the issues that was happening with this property is they're marketing it as a house in the residential market, because that's been pretty hot market lately. They don't have a shower in there, So I think that was one issue. He's having trouble selling it. So it has been on the market for approximately about 2 years. He was entertaining an offer, but it did fall through this week because it was contingent upon a FHA Fannie Mae loan, and you have to have those things. I've tried to go through that process, and you have to have showers, closets, bedrooms, all that stuff to get a loan like that. So he did signal to me yesterday that he's willing to entertain an offer from the Klamath Tribe at this point. So if there's any questions about the property or the research that's been done on it, I'd be willing to answer that. As far as the purpose and the use, I left that blank. I know there's been some concepts discussed through the email threads, but it sounds like it would be a good fit for that tribal operation to go there. So I don't know what questions you guys want to ask about the property, or if you guys want to ask questions about the use.
Yes.
Oh, she, okay,
Judge
good.
Gibson
I'll let
is
her,
online.
I'll let her explain anything about that, or if she has any questions about the building, she can ask as well.
So Judge Gibson?
Good morning. This is the Chief Judge, Patricia Davis. Just letting you know, it's no longer Gibson, just Davis, so
Okay.
congratulations, for order. We've been kind of involved, well, not kind of, really involved in trying to find an alternative space in what the tribe's judiciary is currently utilizing, and I think most of you are up to speed on all of that, but if you have any questions, just stop me. One of the options was utilizing the health department building if it became empty, and that just didn't seem to be feasible, so it was suggested that we call it the church building, would be a possible option so that we can basically immediately start using it because of how it's formatted. We currently can't have in-person hearings because we can't assure physical distancing and safety of the tribal membership when they should come into court. So this seems to be a win-win option. Maybe down the road it could be the judicial center where it could house some of the police department if that's where you're going. But I'm not quite sure about all the total availability and how it would work out or be planned. But that's certainly up to you guys on how you want to utilize the building. But from what I was told, that this would be an immediate use. And under COVID, we are asking for you to consider this as a possible purchase.
Yes, Member Palace?
Good morning, Your Honor. This is Councilmember Powless, and I don't have a question for you, but I do know that not all our tribal members are currently aware of what services the court provides. So could you share just a little bit on what types of hearings the court currently has, and also as we continue to expand our tribal justice and system and our courts, what possible services we can be providing in the future? Thank you.
You bet. Currently, we have monthly juvenile reviews, and those are mandated through an agreement with the MOA with Klamath County. So we're getting Klamath County cases, and we are monitoring them. And it's one of the interesting things that under COVID, in the past, one of the most sticking grounds was youth trying to get their community service work done. So under COVID, we've kind of done a little bit of a broader touch to it and allowed them to engage into the community with their neighbors and their grandparents, cleaning up cemetery sites and just having self-reporting from the people that they contribute that time to. And I have to tell you, at this point in time, I looked at the record last month and I went, wait a minute, we've got 100% compliance or close to 100% compliance with community service work. So it's been a major, major shift in how the court is addressing some of these parameters that are imposed on them by the Klamath County courts. It's been very successful. The court, I'm so pleased. I love working with these kids and watching them have a turnaround. We're currently doing guardianship hearings. We're also doing evictions. And we are now ramping up to do restraining orders when there are children involved. There's a code provision, 1550 in the juvenile code, that allows for that to happen and occur. And because the tribes are in receipt of OVC federal funding with the Victim Services, who we now have a coordinator, we're going to be working with Healing Winds in developing that. And my understanding, and please correct me if you're wrong, there's like 125 cases a year, or maybe I'm wrong. Danita, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
I can't remember exactly the yearly case count that they're working on with restraining orders.
I'll have to look back in my notes. I'm not sure, Judge.
But that's something that we're looking into expansion, and as you know, George has been working very diligently with DHS to start looking at child welfare cases, and we're going to see an expansion of the court. Those restraining orders, I'm pretty hopeful that we can start having them at the tribal realm. You know, the critical piece is making sure that what we issue out of the tribal court is going to meet the requirements under the federal law that gives full faith and credit across the board into the state systems. So we're working on that right now. Also working on developing the peacemaking court. That's something that the tribes received a grant for. We have a coordinator on board, and that's going to be an expansion into peacemaking. That's going to allow for an alternative dispute provision into a more cultural response to tribal disputes between members. So that's where we're at right now. We're in development. We're doing nation building.
Thank you. Member Dumont, you have a question? Comment?
So, yeah, I wanted to make a comment for members that are listening in. I know that there's been some consternation in the community about buying property and buildings with the CARES Act dollars, and, you know, I've advocated in the past that those decisions should be made at the general council level. But it's also the case, right, that we've now tried, I think, 3 times to have general council meetings and have not been successful, the last one being because of the fire that came through. And I think everybody knows that we need to spend these dollars by the end of the year. One of the things also that I have really wanted to be sure of is that when this virus is over, that we have something to show, right, for how we spent the money, meaning something tangible, property, buildings, which doesn't, of course, mean that we shouldn't, you know, be helping our people in lots of other ways, and I think that we are. But I just wanted to go on the record, right, as saying that, you know, this is something that I'm very much in favor of. I think in addition to just having a larger geographical footprint for the tribes, you know, what you just heard from our judge, we really want to promote and facilitate our court, particularly where our kids are concerned. We do not want them in the county outside system. We want to keep that business inside where we know that we can care for our own people much better than will happen outside. So I just wanted to say, you know, that's why I'm in favor of this project and why I'll be voting for it.
Yes. Member Pellis?
Just to expand a little bit on what Councilmember Dumont just stated, that one of the things that continually comes up is how we're spending this funding, and this funding does have to be spent by the end of December. But that doesn't mean that COVID-19 goes away on December 30th or December 31st. That we're going to be living with these conditions likely for another year. And so what we're doing is the way we prepare and respond to COVID-19 isn't going to end in December. We just have to spend this money by December. So we'll continue to do that. And by purchasing a building that the court can expand to, we can provide more services for our tribal members and also show a strength of sovereignty, but also keep our community and our tribal members safe by continuing our COVID-19 response.
Yes. Yes, I just wanted to offer my 2 bits, though I don't have an opportunity to vote except to break a tie. You know, this is certainly an appropriate use of the funds to purchase something that would likely be used for the same purposes, and we actually have to put the building to use before the end of the year also to meet the criteria for the CARES fund use. The current facility doesn't provide opportunity to do what we need to do to provide the physical distancing and hold the court safely. So I think this is certainly not only a justifiable but a wise use of the funds, and I support it also, though I won't be voting unless there's a need for me to vote to break a tie. So, yes, Treasurer?
I just wanted to make a comment too to those that are listening. When we received these funds, the U.S. Treasury guidelines were so strict, it almost made us feel like we wanted to just send it back anyways, or they were setting us up for failure. Again, to echo what some of the council members said earlier about the staff, the hard work that the staff has put in. developing policies and coming up with a way to help tribal members and to also expand some of our services to protect our tribal members. So again, you know, kudos and great job to all the staff for doing that. And it's been very challenging on trying to justify and come up with plans on how to spend these funds. But it's always been first and foremost to how we could assist our tribal members.
Okay. So just to facilitate moving along, Secretary reminded us we have to move in a timely manner. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the purchase. Okay. Member Palace makes the motion, second by Member Dumont. All those in favor signify by raising a hand. Got 4 on this side.
Ellsworth?
Oh, sorry, my mic was off. Yes, I vote yes.
Gail?
This is Joe Tenori.
I vote yes.
Great, okay, thank you. So we have 6 yes. Those opposed? 0 opposed. Abstentions? Okay, with 1 abstention, motion carries 6-0-1. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
And to just add value to the tribal members, I mean, just to put things in perspective, there's not a lot of inventory for, commercial buildings, let alone houses, and we've been trying our hardest to purchase houses, but in the Chiloquin inventory, there's next to nothing. So finding buildings for sale that are immediately available for use is very difficult. But more than that, we've talked about a lot of valuation factors. Even at listing price at $315,000, this is coming in at $65 a square foot. To build a 5,000 square foot building would cost us about $1.5 million. So that's quite a bit of value you're getting in with that, even though it's CARES funding and stuff, but just wanted to make that clear as well. But yeah, we got this one ready to sign, and I'll try to meet with Pete Pate tomorrow and see
Thank
what
you,
he.
Jared.
So we're going to offer, after consulting with George, we decided to come in stronger, so we're going to offer $270, and try to get this locked up tomorrow. So.
This is Ellsworth. There's a question online. It says, will this be the tribes forever? So I just wanted to bring that up so that question could be answered.
Yes, we'll immediately start to put it into trust as soon as we get all this acquisition stuff closed.
Chairman, I did hear.
Just 1 signature? Yes.
Yeah, just one at the end.
Okay. We have Joe Tenario on. Do we want to address this other issue later, after we finish with Joe? There's one other item.
Yeah.
I think we'll move forward, so. So we have a decision related to the Klamath Basin adjudication, and we have Joe Tenario from Native American Rights Fund on to do a presentation or just summarize where we're at on this matter and move forward. But Jared, did you have another item to move forward with?
We have the other property.
The Tribal Hills property.
Oh,
Do
okay.
you want to come back
Yes.
or just finish it, or you guys have more knowledge about this one?
Let's go forward with it.
Okay.
Yeah, if
We
folks
have
are,
attorneys on the line.
Yeah.
yeah, so I think we'll accommodate Joe and make this decision and to move forward, but I think it's going to be pretty easy to get through this item.
Joe, do you know if Ed's on? Or is Ed on?
That's probably him there. Is that you, Ed?
Hi, this is Ed.
Hey, Ed.
Hello.
So we also have Ed Goodman from Hobbs Strauss, Dean and Walker that's been assisting us on this matter. So, Joe, I didn't know if you're going to lead us, or Ed, or how we're going to move forward, but I'll turn it over to you folks to lead us through this. And do we have any documentation here?
I don't have it.
I don't think so. I think we just, okay, if you could summarize where we're at. We had some discussion about this matter at our water meeting, and we felt like we needed to bring it forth to the full tribal council to get everybody up to speed on it before moving forward. So, are you going to lead us, start us out, Joe, or Ed?
Yes,
Okay.
this is Joe. I'll take the lead on this.
Okay, we're ready for you anytime. Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, Tribal Council. So can everyone hear me fine?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present to you this morning. I think for purposes of today's discussion, I'd like to begin first with our request, then provide you with a background on the matter, then circle back to our request. So first, another proposes that we bring in Ed Goodman as co-counsel to assist us with KBA matters that deal with the height stipulation. And as you know, the height stipulation is currently at issue in the PJR context that is handling. So he has direct knowledge on the height stipulation that we can use in the KBA. So we believe that his expertise, together with the conservation of resources, will help benefit the tribes. So that's our request here, and as background to that in the KBA, we're coming up on the time frame for parties to file motions for the introduction of new evidence, and so this would occur in the non-tribal cases, including the water right claims like the Heights claim 33. The current proposed deadline for that is November 6th. There is a intervening matter that may postpone that deadline, but for now, the November 6th is the proposed deadline that we're working under. And that intervening event has to do with the UBI's petition for mandamus, and I can talk more about that later on. But first and foremost here is how the height stipulation impacts the KBA for purposes of that November 6th deadline. So going back to the height stipulation and the litigation involved in the KBA, what's at stake is the stipulation that the tribes and the U.S. entered to resolve the contest to Heights Claim 33. That stipulation had a number of provisions that went beyond merely defining the water right for Heights Claim. Those provisions that exceed the determined water right include the conservation easement, the reduction of Heights certificated water rights, the limit on the Heights water use, that it could not exceed 50% of the natural flow of the Williamson River. And so the tribes and U.S. agreed not to fall on the Heights so long as those limitations were met. The problem was that for that stipulation to work, it required OWRD to selectively enforce so that the tribes and U.S. could enforce on other Williamson River water users. But when it came to that enforcement issue, following the issuance of the findings of fact in the KBA in 2013, tribes learned OWRD would not selectively enforce. And so what transpired from there were those series of PJRs, and Ed had developed some memos early on in 2013, and I think again in 2015, regarding the contractual deficiencies with the stipulation, and other arguments regarding whether it's void or not, or whether it's in effect, and so forth. Back in 2016, the General Counsel passed a motion declaring the height stipulation null and void, and the main reason for that was that the approval process was not followed according to tribal law, and so coming forward after the 2016 council action, PGRs were filed by TPC and Heights, and they raised the height stipulation there. And the litigation is still ongoing. As mentioned, Ed has represented the tribes in those PGR cases, and essentially the Marion County Circuit Court has held that OWRD must enforce the height stipulation snowfall provision, even though it was not incorporated in the Act Book because of arguments that it was in either a rotation agreement and OWRD was a party to that stipulation and therefore was obligated to enforce it. So those representations were made to the Marion County Circuit Court, and with respect to the height stipulation and its involvement in Claim 33, the critical issue that we are faced with right now is that the U.S. is contemplating withdrawing its exception to that Claim 33. The height stipulation is part of the record for Claim 33, and the U.S. is desiring to get the tribe's input on this. And so in terms of coming up with a recommendation on what the tribes should do with respect to the United States contemplated withdrawal of its exception to Claim 33, we'd like to have Ed be part of those discussions with us and have him involved with coming up with the recommendation. So this would be limited to the work that we're dealing with in the KBA as it relates to the height stipulation. Again, here the contemplated withdrawal date for the United States is going to happen sometime before November 6th, and we'd like to get back to them on it by October 12th. And if we get the approval by tribal council, we'd like to move forward with at least gaining that experience that Ed has and coming up with a memo to the tribes regarding this matter. So that's the immediate issue with respect to the height stipulation and how we like to use the resources and the expertise that Ed has with respect to this matter. So I mentioned very early on that the November 6th is a proposed deadline, and that's the deadline for the motions to introduce new evidence in the non-tribal cases, like the Heights claim, and that deadline might be pushed off. We don't know, because what has happened since our last oral argument was that the Upper Basin irrigators had filed a petition for a writ of mandamus, and generally what that does is that a mandamus proceeding is under the Oregon Supreme Court's jurisdiction, includes a proceeding that challenged the actions of circuit court judges. And here, the event that caused UBI to file that petition is Judge Wogan's order granting OWRD motion to strike certain UBI documents and statements as they relate to the tribal claims case. And so that matter might cause a delay in the proposed schedule. But in the meantime, we're working as if that schedule will remain. So that's why this is kind of an urgent matter. The the United States does want to hear back from us sooner rather than later, and we propose that we'll get something back to them on October 12th. So for purposes of today's presentation, that is what we are asking is approval from the tribal council to have Ed and Hofstrauss be co-counsel with us in the KBA matter as it relates to the height stipulation matters.
Okay. Joe, and I know many of us that have been tracking this for a long time probably have a little bit better understanding, but I want, we have members listening in, I'd like to summarize it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the matter, the Hyde stipulation has been an issue separate from the Klamath Basin adjudication process, which we're currently in Klamath County Circuit Court. So there's two matters that affect our water rights. This matter with the Hyde stipulation and other court actions has made it necessary to introduce some new evidence into the separate adjudication process. And since Ed's been working on the Hyde matters, the request, or what's before us today, is to approve Ed to coordinate more directly with the Native American Rights Fund to make sure that that we can address this effectively and protect our interest in the adjudication. Is that one way to summarize it?
Yeah, I agree with that summary.
Okay, great. So that's mainly for our members that really haven't been tracking this really close. But yes, Clay, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. I think most of it was understandable, but the part about what the U.S. withdrawing their exception would mean, I wonder if you could say just a little bit about that and why that's such a concern. No, I just want members to be able to understand.
There's several rationales that they provided us in terms of them withdrawing the exception, and one of them I think is really a practical matter. They just don't want to give Dominic another forum to argue the height stipulation. And number two, they mentioned that the exception to the height stipulation in itself is very vague, and that it was just put in there as a placeholder for the United States. The tribes didn't file an exception. We filed a request to be heard. And then the third thing that they raised was that currently OWR's position on this is, especially with respect to the enforceability of the height stipulation, is that it's not. Overall, I think together with those rationales, the central thinking for the United States is that it may be possible for them to avoid to address the contractual deficiencies in the height stipulation that I mentioned earlier. And I mentioned that early on Ed had done some memos on it with respect to the contractual arguments. And those arguments may not be as strong as we like them to be. That there might be a 50-50 chance, as I recall, of success if we have to litigate those types of matters. And so I think the underlying thinking here for the United States is that if there's a way to avoid having to take those arguments head on in the KBA, that it might be a good strategy to go along with the United States proposed withdrawal of the exception. But there again, I mean, those are the initial thinking on it. We will come together to provide you with a memo that provides our formal recommendation on the request to withdraw or United States contemplated withdrawal of the exception.
Thank you, Joe, and maybe we'll just leave it there, and members who are listening in can ask us directly, just so we don't put too much out publicly that we don't want out. But that helped. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Secretary?
I do have a question, and it doesn't, I'm ready to move forward to make a decision on adding Ed Goodman as co-counsel, but I do have a question just out of curiosity. At the November, at the Supreme Court, who is, since it's he's challenging, UBI is challenging Judge Wogan's decision, who is representing that side of it?
So this one involves the UBI's petition for writ of mandamus, currently it will be discuss this with Ed, but we're planning to file a response if necessary. And I say that if necessary because in our recent discussions with the Oregon Department of Justice, and it's the ODOJ that will take the lead in filing any on behalf of OWRD. What she tells us is that in her experience, these types of petitions are very difficult to be granted, and also she mentioned that in her review of the petition, it didn't sound to her, it didn't seem to her that it was seeking a mandamus type question. So she's hopeful, as we are, that the Supreme Court will just deny the petition and that we won't have to do anything. That would be the best case scenario here. But if we have to file a response, what we plan to do is the day before the response is due, we'll file an extension of time seeking for more time to file a response. But that's our initial plan so far.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Treasurer?
Joe and Ed, this is Brandy. So with this request for co-counsel, is this work within the existing contracts we have with you, or do we need to amend that?
Hi, Brandy. This is Ed, and that's something that we've been thinking about and looking at the budget. So one of the things that we budgeted for in the contract with Hop Strauss and the tribe was the PJR work, and there was not a lot of action in the litigation this year. There was some lobbying work on the PJR stuff, but there's still a fair amount of funds left over in the budget, and we could just use those for this work, at least for the end of this fiscal year. The only concern being if the Court of Appeals does come down with a decision on the Hyde TPC case, there will very likely be another round of briefing because there will be an attempt to file. Whoever does not win at that level is going to seek review at the Oregon Supreme Court. So there will be some preliminary filing before the end of the year, very likely, on that. Supreme Court has discretionary review, so the first level of briefing is should the court hear the case at all. So that might impact the budget, but there's approximately $58,000 left, and it sounds like the main work for us in the KBA would be related to the items that Joe just mentioned, and those are work intensive right now, but they don't last very long, and it sounds like they'd be done by the 6th of November unless that deadline goes out. So there's probably sufficient funds in that. I don't think there needs to be an amendment. I think what we would need to be doing is looking at next year when it's where there's going to be a lot more work, probably in both cases, and figure out how to structure the contracts then. And we could come up with a proposed budget and work with North and come up with a proposed budget and contract language for that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Well, if there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to move forward and approve NARF to coordinate with Ed Goodman on issues in the KBRA related to the Hyde stipulation.
Approve him as co-counsel.
Or co-counsel, yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's good language. So Secretary, if you got that, you'd like to make that motion, Treasurer? Okay. Is there a second? Okay, second by Member Dumont. All those in favor signify by raising a hand. I've got 4 on this end here.
Ellsworth?
Yes, I approve.
Gale?
I approve.
So that's
Okay.
6-4.
Okay, those opposed, the same. With 0 opposed and my abstention, 1 abstention, motion carries 601. Thank you, Joe. Ed, we'll be coordinating with you further on this matter during our water meetings. So thank you so much for all the hard work you do for us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, I guess we can go back to the other property. We're looking at the Twin Rivers.
Okay, picking back where we left off. So this is another COVID-19 related project. Probably couldn't come at a better time with the weather starting to shift and we're coming into the winter months. But this is for some of you that toured the property back in August. It's 37300 Twin River Drive. This is located a little southeast of Chiloquin, just behind the ridge. More, better directions would be it's right adjacent to Edison's Camp. And more or less, there's 10.2 acres that comes with the land. A lot of it's along the river. I believe it's a half acre or a little half-mile stretch of river frontage along the Sprague River. It's a very large house that comes with the property. It's a 7,000 square foot home with over 7 bedrooms. I believe there's 3 to 4 bathrooms included. They do have a 1,200 square foot shop on the property. Has its own well, own septic. Obviously, there's power there. It was 0.24 miles of river frontage. Everything checks the box as far as we could do on the due diligence of it. I think we would need, it's not 7,000, it's 4,300 square feet house with 7 bedrooms. Yeah, it's for us, for everybody that went into it, I think we were all in awe how big the house was inside. It was pretty large. I mean, I think the only thing that was probably a problem, and I think the real estate agents pointed it out to the owner as well, is they didn't do a very good job cleaning the house up and getting rid of a lot of the junk laying around. I think if that would have been taken care of, it would have looked a lot better, but just from the untrained eye, it looked like it was in fair condition if those things are taken care of and it's cleaned up, the property's cleaned up. But really, so this house has been sitting on the market for a while now, and the last sale, it was sold in 1996 for $325,000. And I think what we could tell from it hasn't been lived in very much by the family. It must be like a vacation property or something to that effect. Sounds like they're from Grants Pass. No water rights come with it. I was able to pull the well report. Looks like it has a solid well on it. I think the only thing we saw infrastructure-wise that was a concern, and I think we stated it in the report, and we talked about it at the site tour, was the 3 Mile Road. The 3 Mile Road is a little bit of a deterrent to this property, but it shouldn't stop us moving forward. It's just going to be something that'll have to be dealt with. I think the biggest issue is the private property that road runs through. That might be an issue trying to fix that whole road, or it's going to be a cost factor as well. But it's not like it's not accessible with a 4x4 vehicle. So I think that's something the doctor has discussed they would probably use for their employees, and he can elaborate more on that. And I think if you guys don't have any questions about the property itself, I would probably entertain the CFO and the GM to talk about the use of it. I know we have some general ideas, but I think they have more knowledge about how they would get it up and running before December 30th.
Great. Any questions on the house, or, okay.
I was
Treasurer?
just going to ask, but that's why Lana and Dr. O are here, to let members watching what this property will be used for.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep.
Thank you, Jared.
You want me to go first? Okay. I gotta sit down, my ankle hurts. I'll sit back a little bit. So I think, as everybody, I think you mentioned earlier about the CADA project, and Clay, you mentioned, we had on our list for the CARES Act, we had the CADA home listed as like homeless shelter, stuff like that. So we have to rework that, and that all changed because of the fire. So what we have for the Twin Rivers property was also, that was going to be proposed to be used as a warming center, a homeless shelter for adults and children in Klamath County, bringing minor children and single adults into the same living environment poses too many risks, exposure risks, and other kind of things. So we were proposing a homeless shelter that will serve adults with minor children as priority. Given that this is a vulnerable population, the facility will require adequate staffing. For safety, a requirement at least 2 staff at all times will be covering the daily schedules, cleaning, cooking, security. Given the pristine and remote location, snow removal and consistent road maintenance will be required in order for emergency services to have access. And as Jared discussed, we'd have to have 4x4 vehicles on that. So our strategy for that is to use the CARES funding. And then we have like an operational breakdown of the budget. So a total operating cost would be some furnishings for the property, $25,000, utilities, $2,000, food, $4,500, toiletries, cleaning, $1,000, staffing, $8,000. So the contract cost would be approximately $12,500 a month. And so we do see that we could get that whole property, if we could get it purchased with Jared, cleaned up quickly and in use before the end of the year and operating. And so we just thought it was a huge, unique opportunity. And the timing, like he said, is very good because of us only having 3 months left. And it provides a viable option, especially that CADA was removed off the process. So
Yes. Secretary?
Do we have any ballpark idea of what our homeless population looks like? What the composition of that is? Do we have parents with children that need to be sheltered? Because that would be a priority. And if so, do we have
accurate numbers?
Yeah.
We could definitely get those from Monica. We could definitely get those from Monica. I think we can definitely get data from you from all the stuff we've been working on since CARES Act on just how many homeless individuals we know of that are identified from YFGC, and then through health itself, because we have a ton that even just in our data we've been collecting on the emergency applications are identifying as homeless. And so all those projects we proposed to you too, I think on our other projects, okay.
In addition, one of the things that we require most in our programming here is data. So recently, as I mentioned in my report last week, we got the SCALES project approved. That SCALES project has included into it a data gathering process, which includes actually, initially, when we developed it, we didn't have the mind of doing a cluster study of all tribal members. But now we want to do a cluster study of all tribal members to identify their social determinants of health, identify the impact of COVID on them and also the 242 fire. When we have that comprehensive information, that will guide us in our programming in 2021. So the figure you're asking for will be available before end of this year.
Thank you. Yes, Member Palace?
As we start collecting our own data on this, I would like to see that broken down on by gender, and then also if they're single and if they have a family. And also, I really would like to see how many of our homeless travel members are veterans. I think it's really important to include our, we kind of forget about our veterans a lot, and we need to be included in that. And also, I know there's other funding for veterans out there that we could be utilizing, and in the future, I hope to really create a really strong veterans outreach program for our tribal veterans. But I suspect that we do have some in that population that are veterans as well.
Okay, I think we have all that, what you just mentioned, besides that one question, but we should be able to identify that question and add that to it. I just wanted to add for that too, on our other projects we were working on, those seed grants that we did with RRW and the Stronghold 2 will provide additional data on the homeless population. That's who they are serving, and we just got those contracts underway right now for the fourth quarter.
Yes.
And I'm sure they've already looked into this, but are we able to access data from the gospel mission? Do we have some type of agreement with them? I don't know if they collect that, their data on how many our travel members that they've served or have in-house.
Yeah.
Sorry. I said, on a monthly basis, they'll give us reports of what they are doing, and we have a template for them for the report, and that report we have those information on a monthly basis. And we're also hoping to, once they set up, to have a monthly review meetings with them to know what they are doing, because the goal for the seed grant was to help them to set up and become strong enough to serve the tribe effectively by next year. So there are monthly meetings and there's monthly report from them.
And we can definitely reach out to the gospel mission and also the homeless shelter, the new one that opened up. There's a couple other resources too through CLASS. They have a huge homelessness project that they do, and their director was the one telling me that they estimate 50% of the homeless in Klamath are native. Klamath County, excuse me.
Yeah, I wanted to say again for members who are listening in that in addition to all of the really important purposes that the doctor and Lana are laying out for this property, that one of the things that's really important to me, right, is that this is our reservation again. It's riverfront land. It's right next to Edison's camp. I mean, I would really hate to think about what might happen if someone else who doesn't share the same values as the Klamath tribes was to buy it. So, and it'll always be ours. It'll go back into trust again, and it'll be Klamath Reservation.
Thanks, Clay. Any other comments? Questions?
Do we have, if we approve this, is there a proposed offer?
Yes, so this one's a little bit tricky to evaluate, and I struggled with it, and just for the fact we're closing on a property just down the river, and the price we paid was so much acreage and all the river frontage we got. This price, the 575 listing price, $575,000 is a little overvalued in my opinion. I think even the real estate agents at the site tour alluded to that. And I do know the adjacent property right next to him, same acreage size, same river frontage. The smaller cabin, but it's a nicer cabin at 2,000 square feet. It's half the size. It sold for $260 2 years ago. But this house is bigger, and it does have a 1,200 square foot shop. And it is culturally significant due to its adjacency to the Edison camp. So I believe I recommended starting out at $411,000 as an offer. It's pretty strong considering that, what we know with the land deal that we're buying, the 32 acres we purchased along the river, just down the river, and then the house next door just sold less than a year and a half ago. So I think it's a strong offer coming in at that. So The different thing with this is I haven't been engaged with the property owner. We engage with Crater Lake Realty. So I already talked to Judy Say this morning. If you guys approve this today, we'll have them draw up the real estate contract since they had the listing for this house. Pete Pate, we were able to engage with them as owner to buyer or seller to buyer. So that would be the only difference. So I don't have nothing for you to sign today. So if you guys have any more questions or want to discuss this anymore or approve it, I'll order Crater Lake Realty to draw up the contract and get it back to the chairman for a signature. But that's what we'll offer is $411,000, and we'll report back when we agree to an accepted mutual offer.
Okay. Yes, Member Dumont?
So I'd like to move that we approve the purchase or the offer at $411,000. Is that what we need?
$411,000, yeah.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Member Palace? Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by raising a hand.
Ellsworth?
Yes, I approve.
4. Gale?
Yes.
Okay,
5.
5-4. Those opposed? Okay, 0 opposed. Abstentions? With 2 abstention, motion carries.
Good deal. And I know we discussed with the tribal health team on Monday, since, we're in COVID-19 and we got deadlines we got to meet, we're not typically putting a lot of the due diligence. I'm going to put them in the contracts.
Yeah.
Just so we have the right to waive those, but we're going to, at the minimum, I know tribal health would like a building inspection, and I agree too. I would feel more comfortable, but we're not going to have time to do a repair addendum if anything were to find out. We would just be getting it for our own knowledge, and we just have to deal with it. So, but we could get I feel strongly we could get an inspection done before November or during the first couple weeks of November. So I'll consider that with the closing date, so we can get that lease done. But appraisals and environmental assessment, environmental assessments don't make sense since we're not building anything at this moment. But appraisals, I wouldn't even try to waste money on that right now. Those are pretty busy out. But I'll move on this. I'll get this contract back to you hopefully today. But there was another opportunity too. They have a building for sale next to the South 6 Tribal Health Administration building. It's a little under 3,000 square feet. It's a commercial building. It's where the pawn shop store is. It is an owner sale. We have met with the owner, so as the GM. He lives right down the road. I think what we were thinking, since it's new and you guys don't know much about this project, this just kind of came up, we could get a tour of the building before I think we get to steps like this, or if you want to listen to Tribal Health and what their proposed use is for this building. But they feel like it's a pretty good fit for what they're trying to do next to the South 6 building. So I'll let them talk about this project.
To hear what's being considered.
And if you guys would be open to coming and looking at it sometime.
Thank you. The 3949 building is fully occupied right now, and we do not have a training center. We do not have a reception in that building. And so the building next to us, 4035, is up for sale. And we thought that would be a good opportunity for us to have a reception, a training center, and also serve as a contactless center for our SCARE project. So we've been to the building. It's very good for the purpose that we have in mind, and we thought that if you can come and look at it and then give us your advice, that would be great. There's another building in between 3949 and 4035. That's also for sale, but the owner is asking for an amount of money that does not make sense right now. We're hoping that when he begins to become sensible, we can go for it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the problem. I've explained and disclosed to the tribal health team that the fee you'd probably have to, if you were to get approval to purchase this, it's probably going to stay in fee simple title until I could get clarity. We've never put a building in trust that's a joined building, so I don't know how we're going to do the boundary assurance certificates and identify the monuments to put it into trust. So it is connected to an older building. I think the other one is in my opinion, just looking at it with Jerry Melentine, I think it's a demo project. I don't think it can be revitalized. but it'd be, provide more parking space. But the one they're looking at, the pawn store, it's listed at $225, last sold for $150,000 a few years back. You know, doesn't seem like too bad of a price. This guy's trying to get out. He's closing his businesses in Klamath, and he's moving back to the Midwest, so he is motivated to sell. But it does have space in it, and looks like once he clears out all his stuff, which he said he sold, and then people should be coming and getting it, it will provide for an open space for whatever they're trying to, you know, the contactless center or the training center or whatever they're trying to get done. But just wanted to throw that out to you guys. It's not like a huge priced building, so it is pretty good value. But I didn't know, I felt like you guys should at least look at it or be aware of what's being proposed before we go too much further with it. But if you guys would like more information on it, I could put together a report for you, or if you guys want to discuss the plan more, I guess that's something Tribal Health would have to put on paper.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's helpful to have the information if it's not too difficult with everything else you're doing, Jared.
No, I can get it to you. I can get it to you. Yeah, I mean, I know it's important to these guys, and I think it's on at the same deadline, correct, with your grant?
Yes.
Your grant was through the CARES legislation, so you do need to get that done. So, yeah, but the owner's, he's there. He said he would come down. He just lives down the road. He'd come and show it to anybody that wanted to look at it. So
Sure.
he's a pretty flexible guy.
Yes. Member Dumont?
So is this on the spreadsheet that Kathy gave us earlier today, or would this be an addition?
No, this just came up. This is fresh off the oven.
It aligns with the Scales project, the three descriptions he recently presented to you guys, the Scales project, it's part of that.
Okay.
So I'd-
Along with all the other benefits he just described.
So I'm certainly open to learning more.
Okay. All righty, that's it.
Are you guys interested in looking at it? Or do you want to see it? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah, I can call Rick, and try to set something up for next week. I know we got a pretty busy day tomorrow too, and you guys are busy today, so. All right, we'll do that, and I'll probably have the report done by then as well.
Great. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Lana. Okay. It looks like we've got one more matter, and that's an appointment to the Klamath River Intertribal Fish and Water Commission. Vice Chair, were you going to lead us through that issue? Did you happen to hear?
Okay, yes, is this at the Fish Commission? What this is we just need a letter to go into files, reaffirming or making new appointments to the commission. Currently, I am the Fish Commission president, and we don't have an alternate. We've discussed a number of times whether we wanted to continue with myself being on the Fish Commission, or whether we wanted to turn that over to maybe someone at the research station, and or having someone from the research station as an alternate. So we had a Fish Commission meeting day before yesterday, I believe, and then we have another one coming up on the 15th. We're in the process of looking at budgets and looking at our current contract that we have for with a consultant. So that's what we need.
Okay, yes, Treasurer?
Gail, this is Brandy. Do we have anything in writing or any minutes or anything like that that we can look at?
Did you hear?
Okay. Yeah, minutes from our Fish Commission meetings. Is that what you're asking for, Brandy?
Yes.
We do have those, and I can get those to council if they'd like to look at them. And how far back do you want? in our earlier discussions, if you remember, I did tell you that we were having problems with having our meetings on a regular basis. According to our constitution and bylaws, we were having issues with the other tribes engaging. So currently, our meeting on Monday, we did have a full board, and we have received letters, I believe, I'll have to double check with Norma, but I do believe that we do have confirmation from the other tribes as to who are their primary and their alternates. And Klamath Tribe is the only one that hasn't submitted that letter as of yet. Yes, we can get you minutes. I just need to know when you want them from.
I would, for myself, well, I want to see what they've done, you know, for the past year, because I know they've had difficulty in having meeting minutes, and then what some of the discussion about the contract, just because I know it's been an issue of getting everybody together. And also, we were supposed to be getting a copy of their annual audits, and I haven't got those for a couple years. So, yeah.
So, Don, is there a specific staff member that we're appointing today?
Okay, I'm kind of having a difficult time understanding. I heard Brandy say about the audits. Getting audits to you also isn't an issue. I can get those to you, and then I thought Willa said something?
Yes, she was asking if there was a particular staff person we were considering, and I wanted a little bit of clarification too. Were you still going to stay on the commission as the president, or were you just looking to appoint an alternate in your stead?
Well, at this time, an alternate would definitely be something that we need, that would assist in check signing as well. I would definitely stay on. The appointment as president actually happens within the commission meetings, so they have the option of leaving me in or moving me out, whichever they'd like to do.
Yes.
This is Willa. I just think that we should move forward with making this appointment, because this has been an issue for well over a year now. And I'd like to identify that staff person and appoint them. And also, I'd like to hear, and that doesn't have to be like on any particular time frame, but I would like to hear specifically the projects the Klamath Tribes are working on as part of the Fish Commission, and what we are doing to help the commission further their mission that they have. Because from what I see, just looking at the history of the commission, it started out really strong, and all the tribes were active participants, and there was a lot of stuff they were doing, like especially the youth activities. And I think if we can go, I know that was the original intention of removing council members and adding staff members so it's not politicized. And I think it became politicized because of the KBRA, and ever since then it kind of hasn't really gone back to what it was. But I want to make it go back to what it was when it was first started, and have the vision of the people who founded it. And I know one of those people is no longer with us, but I think we should really carry out that vision that they had when they first started the Fish Commission. But I would like to see a report at some point, just, you know, maybe in a month or so, whenever they have time to get it together on what projects we've done. Because I'm looking at their website, and they have some on there, but I think some of these are already completed from what I recall. So, and it's just something that we could report out to tribal council on what, or not tribal council, but general council, on what our involvement in our benefit of being involved in a commission is. And then also, I know there was concerns because of the past about the audits, but just to continue to assure not only our general council, but the other tribes involved, that we take that commitment seriously, and we're not jeopardizing any of their financial obligations.
Exactly. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, what I was thinking would be a help is finding out from staff who they would think is available and would recommend Did we identify somebody? I couldn't recall.
I don't know if
Okay.
we identified somebody, but they are already going to it. I think there's 2 or 3, Stan and Mark.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that was pointed out, I know you couldn't hear secretary, but a number of our folks are going to those technical meetings that are before or after those Fish and Water Commission meetings. So we could likely appoint any one of those 3. Do you have a recommendation of which staff person, or does anybody have any thoughts on? I'm trying to remember who actually has requested specific approval of those projects that the funding comes through. Any thoughts? Yes.
Also, Gail, do the bylaws state, do we have to appoint, does a person have to be a tribal member? Or do we have to have one tribal member and at least one? Or is there anything in the bylaws about that?
No, there's nothing in the bylaws that states it has to be tribal or non. The other tribes, they do usually appoint an alternate as one of their staff members, so they have some technical people on as alternate. It's not stated, and we can basically, choose whoever we want to, or appoint whoever we want. If we need to take, a day or 2 to think about this, or even talk with our staff, we can do that. I would just like to have it done as soon as possible, at least before our next Fish Commission meeting, which is October 15th.
Secretary?
I do, I think we should appoint one of the staff, and I don't have a preference for who, but do we need to touch base with George to make sure that by us appointing...
Hey, Johnny, he's waiting for you.
By us appointing... Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, let's put this on the agenda for our water meeting on Monday and invite George in and have some discussion. Stan and the staff will also be there too, so. Okay, so let's put it on our water committee agenda meeting for Monday, and then we'll take a formal action as quickly as we can.
And I see.
Okay, and Brandy, with your request, would you mind sending me an email with what you want, and then I can make sure that I get those out?
Yes, and I see on the chat line that Norma has responded that all audits have been sent to the commission president every year. So yes, I will do that. I'll send it to you. Thank you, Norma, and thank you, Gail.
Well, I think that's it. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, by Member Palace, second? Okay, by Treasurer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, those opposed? 0 opposed. Okay, we're adjourned.